I am Professor Sandeep Jain. I have done BTech in Mechanical Engineering from IIT Kanpur, and subsequent to that, I have done PGDM from Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow. I have an industry experience of more than 25 years, including experience in my own startup. Subsequent to that, I have joined academia more than a year back, and now I wish to help the students with their entrepreneurship mission and vision. Just one second. Yes. Okay. Sorry. So the agenda for today is WWW of entrepreneurship. The first W stands for why. What it indicates is why should one go for a startup. The second W is what to start in a startup. Unless you know what to do in the startup, you wouldn't be able to start it. The third W is when to start in a startup. Whether somebody could go for a startup while studying, or should somebody wait for and acquire experience and then go for their startup. And if time permits, we'll cover a few extra topics. Now, why these three W's are important? For a student, unless these three W's are answered, it is not possible to take a career decision about a startup by a student. These three, why, what, and when, these are very, very fundamental questions that would be there in the minds of a budding entrepreneur. And before we take a look at the three W's, there's a recommendation that all the students do read up the biography of Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson, because Steve Jobs is one of the greatest innovators that the business world has seen. And his life is a lesson for every student. And the other great recommendation to acquire the nuances of the business world, to acquire nuances of the startup world, is to watch the movie Social Network. This is the story of the Facebook. Okay, now we'll start. Now, I'm going to read out a few statistics, and these statistics are quite amazing. Ankit Bhati, Ola founder, net worth 1500 crore. Bansal founders, Flipkart founders, net worth 6000 crore. Now these figures are quite old. The amount might have gone up in the recent years. Narayan Murthy and family, net worth 8,000 crore. I'm rounding off the figures because precision is not the objective here. I will let you know what is the objective of sharing these figures with you. Mark Zuckerberg, net worth $54 billion. Jeff Bezos, net worth $160 billion. And Amazon has been doing pretty well even during the Corona period. Google founders, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, net worth $7 billion each. And this amount has also gone up. Okay, I'm going to now tell you the objective of sharing the figures. And remember, we are talking about why. So even if the financial incentive is not the number one objective of an entrepreneur, but if your venture is successful, the financial rewards that you are going to get, that are going to be extremely satisfying. It will be good for you, your family, and your friends. The linear growth in financial rewards in a job cannot match the exponential financial returns that you can get from a startup. So this is one of the good reasons why you should seriously give it a thought of opting for the career path of a startup founder. The second why. I'm going to cover 3 whys, and there are more reasons, of course, but these 3 can satisfy the curiosity. In an organization, there are all kinds of job roles. At the top, there's chairman and the CEO, and at the bottom, there are clerks, there are interns, there are admins and executives. Now, if you join a company as a fresher, you would probably be an executive, or you would probably be a trainee. And then after a year, you become a team member, and then after a couple of years, you become a team lead, and so on and so forth. But as you go along, your job role is going to change a little over the years. Whereas when you start a startup as a founder, you are going to be the CEO or one of the directors like CFO or CMO from day one. And that enrichment is going to help you tremendously in your professional growth, personal growth, and satisfaction. You can work in the area of marketing, you can work in the area of HR, finance, operations, and whatnot. The amount of exposure you get, that is going to be much bigger than in a typical corporate employee career track, where the job role is going to be very narrow and going to be quite stagnant for a couple of years. The third why is about the pyramid. And this is something which very few people have talked about, very few. And I can speak about it because in my 25 plus years of experience, I have worked in the field of HR as well. Now, what does this pyramid indicate? Let's take example of TCS. TCS has more than 2 lakh employees, but there is only one CEO. And similarly, there is one CIO, one CTO, one CFO, and so on. So people at the top, the directors, typically cannot be more than 15 or 20. TCS will hire 20,000 freshers every year. But because there's going to be ultimately only one CEO, it is doubtful that on an average, somebody can see the career path leading to the position of CEO. Very few of those freshers are going to reach the top of the pyramid. And that happens because as the seniority grows in the organization, the number of positions reduces in an inverse ratio. So there might be a very large number of freshers, maybe 20,000 less than a year experience, and maybe another 40,000 less than 3 years experience. But after that, there'll be a lesser number of team leaders, and after that there'll be still lesser number of managers, and then a very few number of directors or the heads. So what does it mean? That if you are looking at a career progression in a corporate world, the chances of reaching to the top are very less. Whereas if it is your own company, your own business, you would be at the top, and when your company grows as a result of your own efforts, you would also grow along with it. So the chances of being at the top and at the top of a good company are much brighter when you are working on a startup, your own startup. So we'll go to the next W, but before that, let's take a look at a trivia. And just to avoid the monologue, we all know Steve Jobs' contribution in the world of technology. Desktops, laptops, iPhone, iPod, iPad. These all products were developed by Apple under the leadership of Steve Jobs. But outside Apple, he has one more important contribution. What is that contribution? Anyone would like to share that? Since it is a time-bound presentation, I'll just cannot wait for a long time. But if you want to unmute and speak, absolutely fine with me. Or otherwise, you can mention it in the chat. Okay, then I'll come up with the answer. So when Steve Jobs went out of Apple in his first stint at the Apple, he produced a movie called Toy Story. Toy Story premiered at Al Capitan Theater in Los Angeles in '95, and for that month it was the highest grossing film, and ultimately earning $373 million. And its lifetime earnings as a franchisee were even bigger. It must be a couple of $1 billion. And this was the first movie which was produced as a fully computer generated 3D animation. And it changed the world of the cinema as a milestone. This movie was a joint venture between Disney and Pixar. Pixar was the name of the company under which Steve Jobs produced this movie. So this will give you an idea of the talent. So the reason why I'm sharing this trivia with you, so that there is some inspiration to learn about the life of Steve Jobs. So we come to the W part. Normally I would spend some time trying to ask students to figure out what is this, but in the interest of time, I'll tell you what is this. So this is a pot inside a pot. There's a space between the two pots, and the space between the two pots is filled with mud and water. This small, simple gadget, this was invented in Africa. And the idea behind this gadget is perishable food items can be sustained for a much longer time, because in rural Africa, the availability of power is scanty, and the purchasing power of the people does not allow everyone to buy a refrigerator. So for a very low cost device, the food items can be maintained fresh for a longer period, just like a refrigerator. This invention got a lot of international recognition and awards as well. Now, the reason I shared this example is when we are looking at what to do in a startup, one very good thing to do in a startup is solve a problem and help a very large number of people in the society. If you take a look at the examples of Uber, they have solved the mobility problem for a very large number of people. So the cars are available on demand, anytime, anywhere, which was earlier not possible when people were relying on auto rickshaws or radio cabs. Sorry. So the other W which I'm going to talk, and I'm mentioning two watts. There are more, but I'm looking at a larger picture, which will give you a clear direction where to focus your efforts on. There are solutions and startups which are not brand new inventions, and they are also not brand new innovations, but they are inspired from someone else, and they have solved a problem in their own market segment. For example, Flipkart was inspired from Amazon, and it did wonderfully well in India. Ola was inspired from Uber, and now Ola is also present in European countries and Australia. Ghana.com was inspired from Spotify, and Oyo was inspired from Airbnb. Though the corona epidemic has dented the growth of Oyo, but Oyo also became a worldwide player, just like Airbnb. These are examples where, in spite of not being fully original, they still applied an innovation in their own market segment. Okay, so Paul Graham is a blogger. I'll read one important sentence. I have read a lot of his write-ups, and they're very good to know. Startup ideas are something the founders themselves want, that they themselves can build, and few others realize the worth of doing that. What this means is the founders have to have an aspiration to solve that problem. That is how they will be able to take up an idea and solve problem for hundreds and thousands of people. So we'll look at the third when. We have covered the why, we covered the W, and now the when. This is again a very persistent question. Students keep thinking, is it the right time to start, or should I first take a job, save a little amount of money, get married, blah blah blah. So I'll give you a lot of examples when a startup has come out of a college. And also I'll give you an example where a startup happened because there was an urge to solve a problem with which the founder was himself finding it difficult to live with. So since I have given the icon of red bus, we'll talk about the red bus. So there were a few IT company employees who wanted to travel to Hyderabad on Diwali, and they went to bus operator to buy the tickets, but they could not get it. And after that they went to the next one and the next one and the next one, but none of the bus operators could get them a ticket for traveling to Hyderabad from Bangalore because all the buses were full. So these guys, they decided to take it upon themselves to solve the problem, the pain, that why should somebody keep moving from operator to operator to find availability of a ticket. So there was a portal of Red Bus where all the operators joined and they could sell their tickets. If somebody wanted to travel, he could do a single search, find out which operator had seats for the given date and time, and at what price and at what features. And this is the concept of a marketplace. This was applied in the travel industry. And Redbus was an iconic success. It was acquired by a big player from South Africa. And there are examples of marketplaces. And the granddaddy of all the marketplaces is Amazon. Amazon started or popularized the concept of marketplace. So marketplace is there in every industry. It is there in insurance. It is there in all kinds of ticket booking. Book My Show is for the movies. So after the success of Redbus, many more marketplaces, portals started coming up. Okay, now we'll take a look at example of college time projects. So one example is Kayako. Varun Shur, he was actually a school dropout. He was not a college dropout. The internet has got in wrong information. I took it from Wikipedia. And the reason why I know he was a school dropout is because one of my colleagues, he was working in his company. And he started a cloud-based help desk ticketing system when the concept of the cloud was not even known in India. And he sold his company a couple of years back at a good valuation. So we'll take a look at few more examples. Okay, there are two very, very high profile companies which were born as a college project, and everyone uses them on an almost daily basis. Okay, so first of those companies is Google. Google was based as a result of the PhD project that Sergey Brin and Larry Page worked on. And it is now, of course, a giant of a company. I could have spoken more about Google because I have read the biography, but in the interest of time, I'm moving forward. Facebook is another company. This was college project, which then became a company. And those who have seen social network, you'll know that it was established by Mark Zuckerberg along with his roommate, not actually a roommate, but college batchmate, Eduardo. And so there is when we are looking at the what, and what said that it should be a problem that is solving the pain of a large number of people. But how do you know it is going to be successful? Because sometimes people are not always motivated enough to solve a specific problem. So prototyping is one design mechanism that will tell you whether your idea is going to be successful or not. Let's take an example. And prototyping is one of the stages of design thinking. Design thinking is a separate topic by itself. Now, if somebody is making any company is interested in developing a software product or an application or a mobile application, before actually carrying out the process of development and spending the money on it, what is done typically is the layout of the screen is done either by hand or by a tool, and that is shared with the stakeholders and with the end users, and the feedback is taken whether they would be interested in such a product or not. So here is an example of such screen. So if a product is going to cost $1 million to develop, the screens for that can be probably done in just $100. So if the concept is not liked, the company will not go in for the development, or they will revise the idea of the product and they will save that $1 million. There are a lot of examples where even big companies spent millions and then they found out that the product is not successful in the market. And prototyping is not limited to software. It can be done with mechanical products also. It can be done with the cars as well. You might have come across news of various international expos of the car manufacturers where they display their upcoming models. And the displayed item is not a running item, it's not a drivable car, it is just a body and the interior trims of the car. And based upon the feedback of the people on the body and the looks of the car, the manufacturers take a design decision whether to go with that particular model or not. This is probably the last topic that we are going to take, and this is very important. And because majority of the people and students, experienced professionals as well as students, are not able to differentiate between ideas and implementation. It is those without experience of a startup tend to generally assume that a winning idea is everything. Flipkart was successful because they got the idea of an e-commerce portal. No, that is not correct. And the quote is by Guy Kawasaki. He was a product manager in Apple, and later he became an investor in the Silicon Valley. He says, ideas are easy, implementation is hard. Let's take a look at it. So Orkut was a product like Facebook, and this was being run by Google, but the execution of the Facebook was so successful that Google was forced to shut down Orkut. Now, Apple was not the first company to come out with mobile phone, and neither was it first with a music player or with laptop or with desktop or with earphones. Apple has never been the first, but whenever it launched a product, it became the number one company. And the classic example of Nokia. When iPhone came out, it was so successful that it forced Nokia to shut down its mobile manufacturing division. So what this tells us is, idea is nothing. Almost every individual can get an idea, but there are very few people who can execute like Steve Jobs. And now we are almost at the end of the session. So this is one more example, Flipkart versus Snapdeal. There are YouTube stories why Flipkart was so successful and Snapdeal could not be successful. I mean, they are surviving, but they're not as successful as Flipkart. Okay, this is just trivia, and the purpose behind this trivia is to arouse an interest in Steve Jobs and Apple. So who was the other Steve in Apple as a founder besides Steve Jobs? That was Steve Wozniak. So Steve Wozniak was the engineer in the initial days, and Steve Jobs was the salesman. And Steve Jobs was a master salesman, and there has been no greater salesman than Steve Jobs. And another trivia is, what are the companies that Steve Jobs worked with? So a lot of people know that he was, of course, CEO of Apple, but which were the other companies? So after Apple, after the first stint in Apple, he founded Pixar, and Pixar then merged with Disney. And Atari was the first company where he worked. He worked as a fresher in Atari. Atari was one of the leading gaming companies in those days. Okay, so my agenda on the topic is over. I will now give a very brief overview of Suryadatta group of institutions. Okay, so Suryadatta Education Foundation is affiliated to Savitribai Phule Pune University, commonly referred as SPPU, and it is approved by AICTE, approved by Government of Maharashtra, and recognized by the Ministry of HRD and by the Government of India. Suryadatta Education Foundation, it was established in 1999 with an objective of developing business leaders. The founder, president, and chairman of the Suryadatta group is Professor Dr. Sanjay B. Chodia. The honorable chairman, Professor Dr. Sanjay B. Chodia, is a senior management professional, an educationist, and a philanthropist. And he has been honored with numerous awards for his contribution to excellence in education and social activities. Suryadatta group is guided by 7 pillars, indicating 7 different career pathways that the students get empowered to choose from when they are in Suryadatta. The first is higher education, which implies after completing the degree in Suryadatta, students go for a higher degree. For example, if they enroll with a MBA program, they can do a PhD after that. The second pillar is corporate career, which most of the students opt for. The third pillar is innovation and startup, and that is what I have been talking about, and which empowers the students to launch their own startup after completing their education or while they are pursuing their degree at Suryadatta. And we support the students through our Entrepreneurship Development Cell and Incubation Center. The fourth is family managed business. Students whose parents and relatives have a business and the students want to join them, then we offer special courses for such students. Fifth is education. What this implies is, after completing their degree programs and higher learning, students come back to the field of education, research, and consulting. Sixth point is social entrepreneurship. this implies the students go into the world of NGOs. They work with NGOs or they establish their own NGOs and serve the society. And this also is similar to the field of startups. The last career track that Suryadatta offers is services for the nation and world. And what this implies is that the students opt for public sector jobs like the civil services, IAS services, or armed forces and serve the nation. So all the 7 pillars are very important, and they are the ones that the students very keenly seek their career in. And Suryadatta is the place where they find that they will be empowered to choose the pillar of their choice. Thank you.